Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Political Deep Dive After Dark. I am David Valente. Thank you for joining us once again. And with us this evening is Miss Emily Hurley. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm,
Excellent.
I'm well. I'm doing well for somebody who got in an accident today.
Uh-oh, what happened?
So I was gonna get on the highway to go up to Hagerstown, Maryland, to get some lunch, and as I was driving up to the on ramp, I saw that there was traffic was backed up, so there was an accident somewhere on 80. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just take the back way in, and I was I was in the turn lane, so I was trying to get back into the main road to go the back way into Maryland, and I was looking over to see if there was anybody in the lane. And as I didn't cut it over far enough, I clipped the guardrail with the passenger side of my car. So it's lovely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So cut my trip short this morning, and just been chilling at home today.
I'm thankful it wasn't any worse.
Yes, I am too. I kind of twisted my ankle a little bit the way my foot was sitting in the car when I
Hmm.
hit, and caused my ankle to kind of twist a little bit. But you know, my ankles twist at the drop of a hat anyway. So
You got weak ankles.
I do have weak ankles. Sad, sad, sad. So how was your week?
Busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had visitors this week. My soon-to-be roommate and my mom. So
Nice. When's your
yeah, full house.
soon to be roommate moving out there?
Don't know yet, but soon.
Nice. Okay. How's your mom?
She's the best.
I saw
She's
that
just the.
picture she made of you. Oh my goodness.
I know she's picked up painting. So she was a band director, like for high school. She was
Yeah.
actually a pioneer in her field, really badass woman. Like when she auditioned for college back in the 70s,
Yeah.
she was told by professors at Bowling Green University, her dream school at the time, that they would give her a full ride scholarship for piano, but women aren't band directors. So she ended up going to the University of Toledo instead. And not only did she become a band director, but she was the head band director of an entire district. And this band went on to win several national awards over her tenure. So,
Yeah, that's right. Show 'em.
yeah. And then she got injured and she can't direct anymore. So her career was ended. This was maybe 12, 13 years ago. She just picked up painting. So you can reinvent your life.
Yes. And she did a wonderful job with your picture. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I
It looked
was
like
really
an
impressed
actual
too.
picture. Yeah, it looked like an actual picture rather than a painting. So that was great. So
I will tell her.
yeah. But yeah, so strange week for me because my wife went down to Georgia.
Not to be confused with the devil. Aaliyah's
No,
wonderful.
Leah is wonderful. She is a saint because she married me. But she goes down there for the summers because we have a house down there. We inherited from her parents who've passed on. So she goes down there to check on things, make things, make sure that we don't have any issues. Because houses that sit vacant tend to fall apart fairly rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really weird how that happens. So
Mm-hmm.
we try and send get down there 2 or 3 times a year at least. So, but she's down there, and now she's talking about coming back early, maybe next weekend to not that I really need it because the car still drives, and I'm getting it taken care of Thursday. But she's like she's trying to get new employment this summer, so
Mm.
her teaching job kind of took a sour note. So she's looking for new employment within the school district. So But yeah, that's pretty much it for me this week. We did have our Eastern Panhandle convention, and I always say, attend libertarian events, win libertarian prizes, which include jobs and responsibility. I'm vice chair of the Eastern Panhandle affiliate, but that's fine. I can live with that.
Congratulations.
I'm the chair of vice. That's my goal. But Olympics are starting soon.
Yes.
And they're already having issues.
Yeah.
So American Coco Gauff, one of our top tennis players in the world, is tested positive for COVID. There's been a positive test in the Olympic Village. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but Japan is going through a big spike in COVID cases. I guess the Delta or Delta Plus variant or double secret probation COVID variant. I don't know what it is. But yeah, they're hitting Japan pretty hard to the point where they're not going to have any fans in the stands, which I think is going to be weird. I don't know if they're going to do that piped in sound like they've done for like football and hockey. It's really weird to hear crowd sounds when there's no crowd there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that this will go off that well, though. I think there's going to be a point where there's going to be a massive outbreak in the village because a lot of the athletes have not been vaxxed because one, it takes you out of training for a few days,
right.
And two, they're young, healthy, look at themselves as invincible people.
Well, maybe it's not so much that they look at themselves as invincible, but perhaps they're just low risk. So why add extra complications?
Yeah, and so we could see a big outbreak. And what do they do with the Olympics if that happens? Do they cancel it again? Do they
I'm sure they've already come up with contingency plans. It's remarkable. I'm planning an event right now, not to take away from the Olympics, because this is just a nonprofit charity here in Decatur, Illinois. But we're just starting talks, and in my research, it's a gingerbread festival competition sort of deal for Christmas time.
Ooh.
But even in 2020, I saw that they made some of their big gingerbread festivals remote entirely. And yeah, like you could view gingerbread houses like in 360. I thought that was a pretty nice touch. So I'm sure if gingerbread folks can make it happen, the Olympics can make it happen.
I mean, yeah, yes and no, because I mean it could just affect like one of the sports, but of course these guys are living together in an Olympic village. So you would think that, say, a rowing team comes down with COVID because one of them sneaked off and got exposed by somebody, and it starts going through the village that everybody's testing positive. That it could impact several sports, so or at least several teams. So you might see a rowing team get disqualified. You might see a soccer team get disqualified because they don't have enough players, that type of thing. But yeah, it's crazy. We're 16 months beyond when we really kind of started shutting things down. We're still living with this. For me, I feel a lot, like I don't wear masks going to stores. I'm pretty much just doing my thing now. But yeah, other places in the world still dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, and we're still dealing with it. Like people are still coming down with it, but
yeah. Last week we had a spike in the number of positive cases. So
yeah.
I had Anthony Multi on the show tonight, and we talked about that. I don't know. I don't really care what people's opinions on what the vaccine is. I think a lot of us just agree that we don't want to force people to get the vaccine if they don't want it. Not really big on the idea of a vaccine passport or anything like that. That show your
Yeah,
papers, please. You know.
they can fuck right off with that
Yeah,
noise.
exactly. But they could enforce something like that because that
They can enforce whatever they want at the
yeah,
end of a gun.
yeah, exactly. Um, depriving you of depriving kids of going to school, depriving you of going to a theater or ball game or whatever. Yeah, yeah, these are individual choices, but still, I don't have any appetite for a vaccine passport. You do you.
My soon to be roommate is a very conservative Republican. Go Navy, I think, is her brand. And like we went to Lowe's when she was here, and she wanted to buy an American flag for the house. And not, I mean, I have very complicated opinions, and I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
forthright with them because I don't owe anyone an explanation.
Sure.
I just don't necessarily want an American flag on my house. I love my country as it stands. I have a lot of freedoms that women don't have in other countries. So I'm
Yeah.
thankful for that. I just don't want an American flag on my house, but if she wants to do it, So I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, how can I convert this woman? Because it's going to be fucking insufferable. Like she has and I by it's going to be fucking insufferable. I don't mean her. I mean the statism.
Yeah.
And the clash of like, I love you. Why are you like this? She wears one of those rubber bracelets that has the blue stripe, back the blue.
Wow.
And I'm firmly in the all cops are bad group. So
Yeah. And he just like this. Let's bring him in. Tyler.
hey,
Oh, his screen froze.
he's black. Shit.
Oh, there he is.
We're just talking about cops. So
hey, Tyler, how you doing?
he is pixelated and slow, is how he's doing.
That's right. So we had a question. Is it a sound decision for New York City to have schools closed? I don't. Again, I think the way that the educational model has to go forward is that you're going to have students that thrived under the click method, the ones that don't want to be in school but still want to learn, and you're going to have students that thrived under the in-person learning, and you got to have both.
You mean individuals have different needs from other individuals? What?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I said earlier my mom was a teacher, and she's very firmly of the mindset that mandatory schooling is important. And I agree to an extent. But it always takes out that element of the individual. What about that kid who would be much better off just going to work, or lots of examples.
Yeah.
And always, mandatory what? So what exactly are you trying to enforce? Because it always comes down to a gun.
Yeah, is it reading, writing, and arithmetic that you want to force? Is it important a kid knows how to read and knows how to write? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
How to do math, basic math, sure, awesome. But education should have far more choices than what we've been given now. Whether it's the idea that you don't get to do elective education until you're in college. I think the ability to do more elective, finding your passion earlier or whatever, just going through, if you don't have a passion, just doing a general education, that's fine.
Well, a lot of high schools do that.
Yeah.
Like my high school let me focus almost entirely in music after my sophomore year.
Yeah, we didn't have that. You could do music classes as your electives, but it was you still had to do, they were pushing advanced calculus and all kinds of stuff. And like, I'm mathematically declined. I don't do
Hmm.
shit well. I was okay with math until you threw some fucking letters. And that shit sucks. I don't want to find X. X can go fuck off.
Before I took my MBA, as God, I was 20. I don't know how old I was. 27. I hadn't taken a math class since I was a sophomore, because I tested out of it in college, and so I mean, hell, algebra sucks. I've never used algebra, never.
And you know what? If you're an engineer and you're doing calculus and geometry and all that stuff, I get it. Those classes should be offered. Do I
Oh
think they
yeah,
should be mandatory? Oh hell no.
right.
I got through, barely got through algebra. Got through a little. I got through a year of geometry, and you know, it was through the grace of having a decent teacher who knew I was trying to graduate, that he babied me a little bit more on geometry, so I got through that class. But I still had to take another damn algebra class when I got to college. Here's the thing about my school, like, schools talk about, well, we'll accept education that you've done elsewhere, to that they didn't do that at all. There was a guy that I was sitting in this class. He was a nuclear engineer in the Navy. Didn't go to college, but he was a nuclear engineer in the Navy. Drove a nuclear sub.
Okay.
Made him
Okay.
a basic algebra class. Like, if you're a nuclear engineer, there's no reason you should be taking an algebra class. Like, he was just sitting there. I mean, like, asleep pretty much the entire time. And
Well, okay. I don't know the tasks set for a nuclear engineer, but I would have thought that they would have needed to know a lot of things.
yes. So he didn't have any of his course requirements at my university waived. So he had to use an entire GI Bill to get his bachelor's degree. He probably could have skipped all the science requirements, all of the math requirements. But no, they made him. Come on, let's see if Tyler is able to join us now. I got a white screen now. He's white now. He's having connectivity issues.
I don't think he entirely is, because he did paintball yesterday, so I'm pretty sure he's white with purple spots.
I did see a purple spot on him.
Mm-hmm. Now he attributed it to paintball, but
Tyler's got a hickey. He can't respond to us right now because he's still trying to get on. But yeah,
he's trying to get on. We're talking about him getting off.
it's all good.
Another night.
Circle of life. Hakuna Matata. So I put this in our chat before the show. There is a breaking story coming out called Pegasus.
Man, Big Brother's fucking wild.
Yeah, this is going to be the biggest privacy story since Edward Snowden. Since he revealed all of his stuff. Apparently, an Israeli company has developed a piece of software called Pegasus and sold it to a bunch of authoritarian governments. And now it's being found on the phones of leading journalists, several heads of state in the Middle East. And a couple of the journalists have been killed. Two people that were friends of Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed by the Saudis in their Turkish embassy. There was a Mexican journalist who was killed, and his phone was taken after he was killed. So this is
people are still laughing about conspiracy theories. Like,
yeah, I mean,
we're living in one.
Yeah, I mean, this one's a lot more believable because it really is just it's a computer program that, I don't think Pegasus is the only one out there. I wouldn't be surprised.
Of course it's not.
If it ends up, being that the U.S. government has a program that's well, I mean, they're already siphoning off, revealed with. Let's see, he's back. He's back. There he is. What's up, Tyler? Oh,
Get your shit together, Tyler.
Tyler, we love you. He's frozen.
I'm back.
How
There
lovely.
It's a good look, though. We love you,
well.
Tyler. All right. So yeah, Pegasus is going to be a major story over the next few weeks, especially who it was targeted, because they talked about journalists from CNN, Al Jazeera, Agency Presse France. I know I didn't say that right, but that's fine. BBC. So just journalists all over the world have been tapped into. And here's the danger with that. A lot of times these journalists get information from a protected source. How are you going to be able to trust as a source of information, be able to trust a journalist now, because there's a good chance that information is going to make it back to the government that you're reporting on.
We'll have to go to the days before cell phones.
Yeah, a Deep Throat meeting Woodward and Bernstein in the garage in Arlington, Virginia.
I'm not sure I understood what you just said.
So Woodward and Bernstein, the guys that broke the Watergate story for the Washington Post, they met their source. I can't remember his name, Daniel something, but his source's name was Deep Throat.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And so he met them he would meet them in a garage in Arlington, Virginia, to give them information about the White House break-in and the cover-up by the Nixon administration and all that fun stuff. Let's see. Phone come with it, or is it only for? So basically, it's a backdoor item. I don't even know how they got it on there. I think that'll be the interesting thing, is how identifying how it's put onto someone's phone, because are they targeting you and me? Yeah, maybe. But are they targeting, if you were a journalist, or if you were a government official? It's more likely, in at least in this Pegasus instance, seems that it's more targeted towards journalists, government officials, and I'm wondering if it's. We're trying Tyler one more time.
Well, it's worrisome that they're targeting journalists, because I don't know if you've seen some of the things that Biden has said recently, but I mean, he's saying some seriously Stasi bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And so we're losing. I mean, not that we had a clean media to begin with, but it's very clear that they're trying to get control, complete authoritarian control, through this move. I mean, and we've mentioned a few things on here that there have to have been historical precedents for, poor Tyler.
Hey, Arizona, get your internet shit.
So whenever we ask a hypothetical question, I wonder, what's going to happen, or what are we going to do if, well, why don't we take a look through the history books and see what happened? I mean, we like to think we're unique and new, but
no.
I mean, just because we have computers now doesn't mean that we're any different. We just have access to information faster, to more information faster.
Yeah. It's sad because, we're moving into much more authoritarian phase. You know, I don't think there's much, debate about that. That the world is moving more towards authoritarian. At least the governments of the world are moving more towards authoritarian.
Well, and that's just a symptom of society. So
Yeah.
whenever societies freak out, there's always a governmental response.
Yep.
And so fear from society equals tighter grip from government. And the fear mongering that has been going on from the media to generate clickbait and whatnot, that has fueled the fire. And now it's just happening at an alarming rate.
Yeah, definitely.
Also with inflation.
Ooh,
Hope you all got your food and water stores going.
Yeah, that's a scary thing. The way that the inflation's going, and the story that came out of CNBC a couple weeks ago, where like the bright
side
is you'll get a couple more bucks on your salary. Like,
oh yeah, they don't mean anything, but you still can't buy that loaf of bread. But hey, it looks bigger. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, you gotta, at some point we'll all be making six figures and not afford anything to eat. So that's a sad thing. But as a libertarian, you watch this stuff happen, and you're like, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Oh no, it's never going to happen here. It's happening. Do the Ron Paul thing going, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, try one more time. One more time. I see him.
Oh, his eyes are moving.
Yeah.
Does it work? For how long?
It does work.
It's working.
Oh.
Oh shit. It's been good while it lasted.
Yeah. It's been a rough week for Tyler, and
it has.
Sucks. It sucks. Lose your fur baby and an aunt. And it's been a tough week for him, and definitely in our thoughts, Tyler. Sad you can't join us tonight with all your internet issues, but you're awesome. We love you.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, so Pegasus will probably dominate the news. Anytime that there's something that happens to media, news media, they tend to focus on it a lot more. So we'll hear quite a bit about this. I don't know that they'll be able to bury this story, but they're gonna have a convenient scapegoat, and that it's an Israeli design piece of software, and it's going to be on. What it could do is lead to another crackdown on telecommunications companies about backdoor software and things like that. Which ends up being more internet freedom than anything, because the government wants control of all that software, so that if it does need to spy in the future, it can do it a lot more easily. So it's frustrating to watch this stuff happen. But
frustrating is one word. Terrifying is another.
It is terrifying. Again, this incident seems to be more targeted at government officials, but what that does is it tightens the grip of the state.
Exactly. So it just like when with tariffs, like we get all up in arms about that because the consumers are the one who see the effects. We're the ones who are going to see the effects of this. So it's not targeted at us, but it absolutely fucking is.
Yeah, it will be, because you're going to lose journalistic freedom. Journalistic freedom has taken a large hit over the last few years. We've seen journalists more go into ideological camps rather than being truth tellers and truth seekers. They only work when their party is not in power to seek out the truth.
And a lot of that comes down to where the funding is coming from.
Of course, yeah. but you're going to see less press freedom. You're going to see journalists self-censor. They're not going to be looking.
They already are.
Yeah, they're not going to be looking for those big scoop stories from unnamed sources, and you're going to have those unnamed sources not really willing to give them that information. So, it's a chilling effect all along, and then we're going to be poor because we're not going to find out what our government's doing to us, and that stuff will be swept under the rug. Governments will be able to act with more impunity, and we'll all be affected by that. So,
I mean, yes, with every law that is passed, with every thing that the government does, the only way we hear about it is through the media. Yep. So, that's that. We're already living in an age of smoke and mirrors. Mm-hmm. This may well be another instance of it. I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say, but it's certainly not going to make things any clearer.
No, not at all. And what it also does is it does reduce the number of people that are actually out there truth seeking. Makes it easier for them to be targeted.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be more easy to focus on people like us because we don't trust the government.
And we're not going to shut up about it.
Yeah. So, but we're also small in numbers, so much easier to target us, much easier to, use the media to put information out there that, we're terrorists or whatever they want to call us.
La résistance.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Old accent.
I'm interested to see where the story goes. Whether there will actually be pushback from the media, or will it just end up being, oh well, they did that to us. Not much we can do about it.
I hope there's pushback.
I do too. But
that would be great.
But the problem is, like when it came to Edward Snowden, where he was talking about how they were spying on all of us, the media bought the government narrative that he was a Russian spy or a Chinese spy because he was in China when he revealed it. They didn't dig deep on that story. Just a few journalists like Glenn Greenwald and did, but of course Greenwald's gone to MAGA Trumper for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Let's see a new topic. Are Democrats really lying when they talk about voter suppression? Yes and no. I think to the extent that they talk about voter suppression, some of it is blown out, but there are very, because when you think about when our parents voted, it was, show up on election day, vote, and go home. That's how we voted for years. Only in the last 20 years have we started doing things like early voting, motor voting, vote by mail. But there are certain instances that you see, and I've seen, that are definitely voter suppression, like closing all polling precincts or polling places in poor neighborhoods. That's voter suppression. You don't want them to be able to walk to their polling place. You want them to either drive or have to go to another area of town to be able to cast their vote. That is voter suppression. Purging rolls frequently is voter suppression because if you don't get notice that you've been purged, you show up to the polls on election day and you're told that you're no longer registered to vote there. Those are instances of voter suppression. If they take away a day of Sunday voting, do I think it's shitty? Yeah, absolutely. We should be able to vote. I always say now that we don't have an election day, we have an election season. Like it goes on for about a month now. Should people be able to vote anytime in the month leading to the final election day? Absolutely. Do I think that there should be some rules that hey, you can start counting votes. You don't release totals, but you can start counting votes ahead of time, so you don't have to wait for 4 days after the election to be able to announce the winner. Sure, okay.
That makes it tricky though for dishonest ballot workers, and there are.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I don't know, but there's always doubt. Like if somebody comes out and says, well, so and so is behind, we need to get voters, or don't even bother voting on election day because there's no way they can win. There's still some doubt because there are no official totals out there. But there's got to be a way, because they do most of the counting now by electronic methods, to be able to send it through, count the vote, but not reveal it to anybody. But yeah, my personal belief is that we should be able to vote in as many ways that we can, whether it is in person on the day of the election, or a month before the election, or the by mail, absentee ballot. In West Virginia, we've got app voting for people who are overseas, so military, and we also do it for disabled voters, so they don't have to go to a polling place. They can pull it up on their phone, two-factor authentication, blockchain voting, and they've been doing it for the last 3 or 4 election cycles, and it's working fine. Not a lot of people do it, but it's still, it's a good proof of concept that you can do app voting and it's still secure. So.
Mm-hmm.
Question is HR 1, and I think this is the For the People Act. Is that the solution? And if not, what is wrong with it? My issue with that For the People Act is that it mentions bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans, multiple times. It basically is a two-party protection system. Congress last year had a libertarian in it, so you've had independent members of the legislature. We can't have the duopoly codified into law. There are people that believe they're Green Party voters. There's Constitution Party voters. There's Libertarian voters. There are Communist Workers Party voters out there.
Well, and let's not forget that the Republicans and Democrats weren't always a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So parties evolve. We should be flexible enough to allow parties to evolve, allow more people to have their say. And this bill just doesn't do it. And that's my issue with HR 1. I also am not a big fan of federalizing elections. I think they could federalize the federal elections, so House and Senate and president. But when it comes to how we select our city councilor or county commissioner or water board supervisor, that should not be up to the federal government to manage. I think that's just I'm always talking about flipping the pyramid of power to as local as possible, and personal is as preferable, and just adding elections to the federal government is probably not going to make them much more effective, or
probably not. It won't at all.
Yeah.
I'm very anti-Fed.
Yeah,
all the things.
Well, there'll be plenty of examples of why that shit don't work.
Yeah. It can't work at the local level. What makes us think it's going to work at a national scale?
Yeah. I mean, are there local reforms that can happen? Absolutely. But can it be mandated as a one-size-fits-all solution from the federal government? Absolutely not. But, to go along with the, just voting, having as many choices in how you vote, you should also have as many choices in who you can vote for. Ballot access. I don't fight for ballot access just to get libertarians on the ballot. I fight for ballot access so, even the socialist asshole party can get on there if you want.
For freedom of choice, because the smallest minority is the individual.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
we all deserve representation.
That's right. So yeah, ballot access is big for me. That give as many people as many choices as possible. Speaking of shitbag authoritarian governments, we had riots in Cuba this week.
Yeah.
Which quickly got put down. But there's still a fighting spirit there in Cuba. I don't think this is over at all. I think they're, as long as that government exists, there's still going to be resistance to get it out of power.
I mean, and again, let's look back at historical examples. With every revolution, it isn't ever just one event. It's always a series of events spreading over several years.
Yeah. For Cuba, I mean, they've had this was the biggest kind of uprising they've had in a long time. For the longest time, Cuba would just ship out anyone who was a dissident, and then they would, forcibly try and keep as many people in as possible over the last 20 or 30 years. But that situation can't continue to go on. But here's the solution that I have, and nobody's really talking about it in the national media, of course. End the fucking embargo. Nothing will show them that the socialist, Marxist government is ineffective, like allowing them to get new cars. I mean, have you ever seen like the streets of Havana? It's like 1950s, because all the cars there are old 1950 model cars, because the United States has had an embargo. I think the newest cars they have there are Ladas from the Soviet Union. But those are getting on to like 30 years old since the Soviet Union collapsed. So it's like a classic car auction there. And it'd be interesting to see. I think they could make a good amount of money off of those cars that they've got in Cuba, because they've been restoring these things for like 30, for 50 years, really. Because you can't let that car, you can't waste that resource, because if you got a car, you've got to make it run, because you're not going to be able to replace the car. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see that old car culture that is in Cuba. But how do you influence the government? How influence the people to say, you know what, the socialist thing kind of sucks?
Give them goods.
Yep. Give them all the goods. Let's see. Would that be a victory for the Cuban government? No, not really, because they're able to exercise greater control, because they have this boogeyman to point to that takes the responsibility of their government failures off of their shoulders. They can say, "Hey, the reason why you can't eat, the reason why you can't, you can't get gas for your car, the reason why you can't, put clothes on the backs of your children, is because of the United States embargo. You take that reason away, and then people are going to start focusing on the fact that they're brutally repressive, that they take away their speech, and they take away, that they can be detained at any moment. That's how you get out of the, that's how you start focusing the attention of the people from boogeyman America for the embargo. It's the same thing with Iran. The boogeyman America, because they've got the embargo, and embargoes only hurt the poor people of the country. Like, that's, embargoes are really kind of economic terrorism on a local populace. And, there's no good reason for us to do embargoes, especially, it's been going on for 60 years. Like, do you think maybe if we just embargo another 2 or 3 years, it's going to happen? No. They've learned how to live with an embargo. And so, I think there were kind of seeds of change that were starting to go when Obama did lift some of the sanctions on Cuba. But when Trump slammed that door shut again, they were able to point to Boogeyman America because you put an embargo on us, and they're the reason why we're all poor. If they can say, because they know that the United States isn't going to get rid of the embargo, that, well, if they just got rid of the embargo, we would, you'd be much, we would have everything that we need. We'd have all the food and medicine and all that stuff. No, because they know that once that stuff starts rolling in, they're going to, and once American tourists start coming to Cuba and bringing dollars and bringing culture and all that stuff, they're not going to be able to last. They can't keep that kind of repression going. Let's see, another one. Speaking of Iran, what was Trump right to pull out of the nuclear deal? No. Well, was the nuclear deal perfect? No, not at all. The JCPOA it was not a perfect deal, but it was a good deal in the fact that, one, it allowed, it got Iran to reduce its nuclear arsenal, its ability to create nuclear grade materials. And there was evidence that they were actually complying with it because and they were able to get materials in from the participants in the JCPOA. They have verification with the IAEA. I don't think that I don't think it was right that Trump got out of it. I think he was itching for a fight. And I think he was getting bad advice, of course, from John Bolton, who's always itched for a war with Iran ever since his days in the Bush White House. But yeah, it's not the problem I have with the JCPOA now is that the Biden administration comes back and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to get back into a deal with Iran. But then they were like, well, Iran's going to make concessions. Like, why? Iran was doing everything it was supposed to do in this deal. Like, they were adhering to this deal. Trump unilaterally pulled out. So why should Iran make concessions to get back into the deal? It should be, okay, let's restart it with the same terms that we had before. If we want to do some additional negotiations about the terms, then we can do that. But let's at least get back onto the terms that we had negotiated before. That's the issue that I have with Iran. And again, the embargo with Iran as well. That's all that does is hurt the poor people of Iran, who are poor. And there's a certain line of thinking within government that if you just agitate the people enough with, starving them out, no medicine, that they're going to turn on their government. It doesn't work. Because the government knows how to propagandize, and all they're doing is selling that the reason why you're starving, the reason why you're sick, is that it's the Boogeyman America. Mm-hmm. Goddamn foreign policy. Mm-hmm. But I'm happy that Cuba did kind of take that first baby step today or this week. I do think that in the future we're going to see a little more and a little more and a little more. But I think the biggest thing that would help them is to get rid of the embargo and to allow Cubans to taste what non-repressive, although as from what we've been talking about tonight, non-repressive compared to Cuba, but what living with a little bit more freedom is like. So that's my hope for Cuba. So let's get off of foreign policy, because foreign policy it drains me sometimes.
It is draining. It's complicated, and especially when we all know that the answer is local, but there's that constant, but what if, our neighbors aren't so local? It's complicated and messy and draining.
Well, and we've done such a great job of othering people, like, that we got to fear, you got to fear the people of Iran because they might get a nuclear weapon and blow up the world. Every country that's gotten a nuclear weapon is, U.S. is still the only country that's used one in anger, and we're also, the last two countries that confirmed nuclear, outside of North Korea, but the two prior were Pakistan and India, who have had a massive history of shooting at each other. They've had border clashes pretty much their entire history until they developed nuclear weapons. And you want to know why? Because they know that any shooting war on the border, result in a nice game of nuclear badminton. So they've been much more outside of the Kashmir region. Kashmir is always an issue, but that border has become much more stable because the Pakistanis and Indians know that the stakes have risen for any war that they get into. So,
if you haven't read Dr. Seuss's The Butter Battle book, it's very interesting. It's about nuclear war.
There you go.
Or just buttered bread, depending on how you look at it.
So, Britney Spears announced that she's not going to perform until her dad is taken off as conservator, which is good for her. I mean, she shouldn't be a dancing guy. I mean, like, she should be able to withhold. If she is his gravy train, then she should be able to withhold the gravy.
I have no opinions on it. I mean, other than, let her be her own human being. She's a fully grown adult.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Like, why? I mean, I get that she had some mental issues.
She was a child star. Who gave her those fucking issues?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's sad to watch what, she had that downward spiral in the early 2000s, and then that she's still paying the price for it, I think is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else is going on in the world. Oh, Jair Bolsonaro is in the hospital, or was in the hospital for a blocked intestine. He's an asshole.
I don't know who that is.
He's the president of Brazil. He's kind of like Brazil's Trump. He's a jerk. So, but you got anything else for the week?
I'm exhausted, man.
I agree. I'm, after the accident, I've been just wiped out all day today.
Yeah.
So
I bet.
And it wasn't even that. I mean, I was going like maybe 30, and I hit it, and thank God the airbags didn't deploy.
Oh yeah.
Because it was, the first hit was kind of on the side rather than the front. So,
but that's stressful.
Yeah. So, anyway, I guess we'll bid adieu for the evening then. All right. It's good seeing you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Always good seeing you.
Yep. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will see everyone next week. I don't have a guest for next week yet, so I'll have to figure out I'll have to figure out who I'm bringing on for the show. So, all right. Well, have a great night, everyone.
All right.
Adios.